Hello, namaste, and welcome to our show.
Hello, namaste. Very welcome.
How long have you been here in Nepal?
I arrived on the 6th, so I've been here, what now, 2, 3 days? 3, 4 days maybe, that's it. It all kind of blends, but just less than a week.
And how's your experience here?
It's beautiful. It was unexpected in a lot of ways of how familiar everything felt, right? That's what I mean. It's beautiful. The people are beautiful, it's super friendly, and the energy here is it's fantastic.
I would like to know about your name and why you're here. And I could see some kind of stuff in your legs.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that, right? So really, everybody's focused on my name and who I am, right? So my guru name is Sadhguru Rama Parananda, but my name is not important at all whatsoever. It's a thing. It's more of the message I need to say, because people get too focused on the name like an ego. It's like another shirt, another vanity, right? My name doesn't matter. What matters is what I'm trying to teach. And really what I'm trying to teach is people basically how to breathe and live a better life. A life that's more complete, right? What motivates me is, personally, I've lost 28 dear friends of mine, soldiers that worked for me, and that I commanded, that have killed themselves since we came home from war. It was so stressful for me. I took on the asana and just kept going into my yoga to find answers. And then I finally found the answers, but I had a breakthrough into Hinduism at the same time. So I've noticed that there was a spirituality and a mental health that kind of went together traditionally. I started studying Vedic scriptures, and I looked at words like Viseka. 2,800 years ago, they're talking about atomic individuality. And I'm just like, I didn't see this in anywhere else. My personal experience with Hinduism really starts with Shiva. When I was 26 and I was first getting into yoga and meditation, I've been doing this for a while, but when I was getting into it deeply, I meditated, and Shiva, it means the no thing, right? The no dimension. And when I went there, and there was this blue energy and this giant blue man that was just like surprised that I was there. And I was scared, because I've never seen something like this in my Western mindset. So I pulled away. And I was interested for years and years and years, but I never figured that out. And then I started following Sadhguru, and Sadhguru became my guru. And then he loved Shiva, and I saw Shiva. So just this past Easter, I decided I'm going to meet him again. So for 21 days I fasted. I took all my darkness and things. I had stuff from the wars and that, and I buried it in my garden. Buried it down and meditated for 21 days. And I lit a candle on the full moon, and I had an experience that I was like knocked to the ground. It wasn't a nice experience. I thought after doing all the prayer and work I would be loved, but I felt very disappointed. You know what I mean? I felt very angry. I felt like but sad that I was such a sinful person. I was very sinful, very in God's eyes. But then he lifted me up. And that night he taught me a new yoga program, how to breathe Shambho and all these different things, and how to use it. And for hours and hours, and I just wrote things and what I had to do. And the next day I was just like, what was that? So I started meditating more and more and more. In the last 6 months, it's been such a journey. But at the same time, I was able to start learning how to transcend my own mental health, because I realized that mental health suffering is when you're stuck in the mind, and that through yoga, especially Kriya Yoga, you could transcend your mind, and then you don't have to suffer anymore. That's how they kind of match, right?
Okay, so you told me that what do you think about the Hindu, and Hinduism, and how do you came to beliefs in Hinduism when you're living on the Western community?
Yeah, well, this is it, right? So because my experiences with Shiva, he has come to me. My experiences, people wonder why I don't have to eat as much. Yes? And my experience is because Krishna's in the sun and Vishnu's in the sun, and I was meditating from my tree, and then they taught me how to use the pran life force. I realized these different things. So it wasn't, I never said I was Hindu. I just believed in Shiva and Krishna, and there's no Hindu temples. So I don't know the rules. I don't know these things. I just have that understanding. So is the religion right? Yes, of course. But how does that help you? Just to say it's right, unless you know how to use it, right? Unless you know how to use what's given to you, presented by these deities and the Mahadevi and everything else, right? So, yeah.
So, recently you have been here in Nepal. What's the motive to come here in Nepal?
Well, I wanted to grow spiritually, but truth be told, Shiva told me I have to get up to the mountains, yeah, for the full moon. I'll be heading up there. I'm looking for a snow leopard. A snow leopard. He used to be a Tibetan monk named Mirabella, and he was changed into a snow leopard a long time ago. So I need to see him. I had a vision of this snow leopard, and so I have to go meet him up in the mountain by myself, because I've had some horrible visions, and I have to clear them up. So I've been having visions of an asteroid hitting the United States. Yes, in the next 45 days to the next 450 days, the United States is going to get smashed by an asteroid. This vision keeps coming into my head, and it's been making me crazy. So I'm trying to find out the answer, because that's my family. But I believe this so much, even my wife sees it now, that we've packed up trailers and we've got high ground to go to if we have to. But I don't know what's happening, but I know that there's some anger there at the United States right now with everything that's going on. I don't understand God's wrath, but he's not happy, and I see this. So I'm looking for clarity to see what this is, right? So that's part of my purpose, is to sort out my own mind and see what this is, if I need to warn people or not, or is this true? But
so literally you can see the future.
Yes.
And how do you came to know that future?
It just, when I see things, and I've been able to see things all my life. I've been a bit of a seer on that, and see colors. My mom used to beat me for that, because I say there's colors around people, and she's very Christian, old school, and she'd beat me for that, because she said that was evil. And so I tried to stop, and that's it. So the future's never set. There's always 24 futures I see. It's something like that. And they never line up in time. So it's very hard to place. So a future is a challenging game. I believe in the Sanskrits we have a very good word that's called kala, which is space-time, right? Time is much more powerful than everything else. When I teach, we have the three gunas, and then we have the heaven and the host. But Father Time is very important, right? Because that locks. If I want to go to Jupiter, Father Time has to keep it there. So, and so the time is very important too. So it all interrelates. So when you look at visions and the futures, it's hard to see outside of time. And this is why I tell people often, you shouldn't delve too much into the future, right? Because I heard a story, and I haven't read Hindi and stuff, but I've heard a story in my head that it was the evil man there, the Ravana, when he said to his sister or something, was going to have his 8th child would kill him. Yeah, but you can't change the future. But what he could have done differently in that situation, if he would have lived in his heart every day and just appreciated and just live life like Krishna has taught, right? When you put your son in the heart, everything disappears. When you focus on the future, you're living in your mind. And that's the issues with the future, right? Because they're never set in stone, and there's always 24 variations of something, because it's God's grace, right? It's Dharma, it's not mine.
I'd like to ask you questions. Think of nothing, okay? It's empty space, and where do the time originate, and how do the energy come from that space, from that empty space? I'd like to ask you.
Okay, so first off, let's look at the mathematic systems that we use on this planet. They're wrong. Yeah, they are wrong. You can't have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Doesn't exist. You have to have 1, and another one will give you 3. It's metaphysics, quantum physics, science, right? So Brahma had to realize himself, contemplate himself, roar, and create the light spectrum, right? And then here on Earth, humans are made in his image. It's the special thing. So he has a very high standard of you, right? Because the Mahadevi, the angels, everybody else, they're tools for God. But Atman, you're made son of Atman. You're made in his image. So you have the ability to transcend everybody in his image. And that's why there's that high standard. So now let's go back to science. In 1971, Dr. Dennis Gabor won the Nobel Prize for Physics. He created the first hologram. So in a hologram, what has to happen? So the full spectrum of light gets shined through, and then a series of mirrors with the lasers will create a hologram. And then I can take another mirror and place it at a hologram, and then we'll place another hologram here. And then I can take another mirror, place it in that hologram, and then I'll place a hologram here. So on and so on and so on. Right? So now let's go. Central sun in the center of the universe. It's just a giant mirror of light. It shines out into other light suns, into other suns, into other suns, all the way out to here. It creates a light world. This world you can only experience with your 5 senses. Right? The boundaries of our body. And this is the world. And when we're in here, we think we're our mind or we're our body. When we come to Earth, our body has a shadow and our mind has an ego. But we're neither of these things. Right? So when we learn to go inside and become 6th and 7th perception levels of dimension, right? To understand, that's how we learn how to connect. Now, if we look at the universe, we see that it's infinity. How do we somewhat know this in science? And I have a Western mind, so I use a lot of science. Is that if you draw a triangle anywhere on the Earth, eventually you could tell the curvature. So the Earth curves every 12 kilometers or something like that in around. And on that curvature, we did the same thing on the star maps. And we noticed that it doesn't end. But if I close my eyes right now, I could think of dancing elephants, dancing around anything. Infinity works both ways. So you think this is infinite and out of your control for your 5 senses, but when you learn to come inside and focus inside, you create your own infinity. You know, we have 114 chakras. 2 are outside of the body, they kind of connect you. There's 108 that we work with. There's 4 that will just flower for you as you build up. 108 is a very significant number, right? So if we look at the sun to the earth, the diameter of the sun to the earth is 108 times away. If I look at the moon to the earth, the moon diameter is 108 times away. See, the universe is you. This light outside, you think it exists, but you can't even touch it, but you feel it with your senses. So yoga and the spirituality is really being able to transcend your senses, because all suffering, we talked before about the people committing suicide, all suffering is in 2 things. It's either in your body or it's in your mind. Everything else, isn't it so? Mind or body. So if we look at transcending both our mind and our body, we could end suffering and be the humans that we need to be. You know, that strength, the ones that we're designed to be, as the son, a true son of Atman that could develop all 112 chakras. That's my real purpose in a lot of ways too, is that I've been going around, I've been in politics, I've been a whole bunch of things, I've owned businesses, I've made millions, I've lost millions, I've done things, I've been a soldier, special forces commando, I worked in nuclear biochemical terrorism, all this sort of stuff. I understand all of this, but at the same time, there's so much more out there. And this journey through yoga and this journey through Hinduism has helped me heal, and now I use it to heal people and just show them. So you ask, how do I heal people? I don't. I show people how to believe in themselves and how to heal themselves. See, you talk about the Akash around you, right? Do you know what that is? It's magnetism. It's just magnetism. It's a magnetic field. So there's a magnetic field around the earth. So right now, Air is invisible, right? My hand isn't. You can see my hand, right? It's important to me, but it's not really important to you. But the invisible air is important to both of us. If we took all the air out, we wouldn't breathe. If I took all the Akash out, we would die too. So the 5 elements that we have to work with, right? Nama Shiva Ya. But again, right? Fire, air, Akash, earth, and water, right? And these are the 5 elements that make us up. So when we start to learn how to connect, so my program is teaching people how to connect with all 5 elements and understand their true nature. You'll heal yourself once you understand your true nature, right? Because you'll step into the Akash, and that's where the magic happens, the magnetism. Your heart, in the Heart Math Institute, and we studied this when I was doing the Tony Robbins business coaching, all this stuff. The Heart Math Institute, it shows that we have a 1.5 meter field around us of magnetism that the heart produces. So your heart's a magnet. So what we carry in our heart is going to attract. You see what I mean? So if I have love in my sun in my heart, I will attract this into my life. But if I'm always constantly negative, and it's very difficult because the heart sends more information to the brain than the brain sends to the heart. Well, it's emotional, right? Here's the thing, is that emotion travels faster than logical thought. You have this beautiful body. It's a system, it's a computer, it's the most advanced computer. This is the hardware, and this brain is your software, right? And the emotions in the body, so as soon as you feel something, the heart sends an emotion to the brain triggers the hypothalamus that does peptide amino acid chains that come out, and if you're angry or sad or happy, it goes into your cells. The more sad you are, the more cells want the sadness. You become addicted to your different drugs. So the idea with Kriya and the idea of my program and this warrior idea and this spiritual idea is to learn how to spiritually control yourself, and stop the thinking, stop the heart, take control of the brainstem again. Very key and very important. When you look at Lord Shiva, in heaven, he cut his son's head off, and then he ran outside, and Ganesh, and he was able to put the elephant's head on, and everything was good. But it wasn't so for the Adiyogi, right? Because as above, so below. So there's always Lord Shiva, but there's always somebody here that he empowers too in these things. So the Adiyogi cut his son's head off, and it destroyed him, right? My DNA, when I go inside my DNA now, and this is something with yogi, it's magnetic too. We I see in most science, Adiyogi, they think 12,000 years ago. In my own experience, it was 60,000 years ago. 60,000 years ago. That's the first Adiyogi. And that's what I see and what I feel when I go within inside, right? I also see that this is the 84th time this world has existed like this, right? We get 112 shots. I also see that this is the first time in human existence that we're declining. And this is one of the issues here. So this body is a very good tool, but you have to use it. You have to learn how to connect into your 6th and 7th dimension. If you don't, when you come to Earth and you use this body, your karma will go lower and you'll go down, right? Because all of us come from above. It's constant yoga, even up top.
Would you visualize the other dimension where the God existed? How could you see the other dimension?
So how do you see me right now? How do you see me right now? Where do you see me?
So the light reflecting from you.
Okay, so the light's bouncing back, but where do you see me? Where do you see me sitting? Not a trick question. You think I'm sitting here, yes?
Yeah.
That's not true. I'm sitting in your mind. These are just eyeballs, right? They're just binoculars. They're just cameras. You don't see me here. You see me in your mind. You make this picture. It's an inner experience, right? This is the inner experience. So when you learn to use this eye, your third eye, your Anya, right? And you learn to look into your heart, and you turn the light on in your heart will show you things, right? These eyes don't, right now there's 4 million things happening around us. These eyes can't see that. That'd be crazy. So what do? We're deletion experts. We delete what we don't need. I don't need to think about the grass. I don't need to think about my toenails. So we delete. So what do we focus on? Well, it's what we believe. It's all about the reticular activating system right here. It's the processor. It processes 4,000 pieces of information per second, faster than any operating system, right? Take that, Elon Musk, right? That's one for the creator. So I like to show all the time because everybody's always knocking the creator of science, right? But this here, 4,000, but how does it know to process and what to process? It's based on your belief. If I go outside and every time I believe that bad drivers are everywhere on Sunday, every time I go driving on a Sunday, my mind will look to do that. The eyes don't see anything. The eyes are just cameras. You see everything inside your head. You think right now you hear me with your ears. You sort of do, but you're also hearing that, right? But if I sing a song to you, you know, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shiva, and you could still hear what I'm going to say inside your head without your ears. So where's those earballs? Well, that's inside your brain. Yeah, so it's all an inner experience. So how do you see things? It's an inner experience. You gotta give up on this. This is Maya, this is illusion. This is light. You experience it with 5 senses, but it's no more real than anything else. I mean, you thought I was sitting here, but I'm inside your head. I'm just a light picture from the sun.
Now let's talk about why you've been here in Nepal, and what's your next destiny, and where have you been here to meditate?
Okay. Yeah. Well, I basically, it took 2 days, 42 hours to come here, and I meditated that whole time. I didn't sleep. I just, on the plane or in between, I just sit in Toronto airport in meditation. I don't have, people take pictures, whatever, thousands of people walk by. The illusion, I don't see the illusion anymore. So for me, it's everybody's just walking around asleep, so I do my own. So I meditate all the way there. And then what else did we do? We went up to, well, today I went up to the Peace Patagonia, up there, yeah, and I did a meditation for peace, and then I went to the cave and I did a meditation there. I went to Davy Falls. I will go to the Himalayas, that would be bigger, but my focus right now is mostly, I've been helping and performing healings and doing things and telling people their futures, which I'm not always for, right? As I said, because it goes against Dharma to know your future. But if you want it, I'll give it to you, but it goes against Dharma, right? It creates a life of karma, and that's it.
Guru, I've heard that you're thinking of building a hospital and nurses school here in Nepal. Yeah. And what's your project? And when you're gonna making that building hospitals and nursing schools?
Yeah, so I'm currently working on a few things in Canada. One of them is a hospital. So we're doing a hospital for veterans and First Nations and everything else. And the model I've kind of looked at is also with Denmark and everything else, and having students live with geriatrics and stuff like that. It combines that. Because I noticed that first year university students, when they go away somewhere, they end up in trouble. But if you pair them up with an elderly person, they act better. Right? Give them a mama G to take care of, right? They're going to have to be good. It won't be. So this kind of a concept, and we're doing this in Canada. So my sister Amrita here was talking to me about the needs for hospital, and that's what I do. So the how is not so hard, the when is going to be a little bit more challenging, but that would be starting now, non-stop date, 5 years from now, done. So I started talking to people last night, actually. I get people excited about it.
Guru, whom do you want to deliver this message who are watching this interview? Whom do you want to deliver your message?
Anybody that's hurting, anybody that's alone, you know, anybody that's just, you know, I was depressed. I had major post-traumatic stress. I was on 13 pills a day. You know, I tried to kill myself, and I was hospitalized and everything. And I was in I've watched 28 of my friends now kill themselves, hang themselves, shoot themselves, everything else. So I committed 100% to this, obviously. And in doing so, I've changed, and now my purpose is help other people, right? I don't want you to hurt. I don't want you to hurt. Every human, I don't want you to hurt, right? I don't. It's enough. It's enough. Plus, you know, I call what I teach the Tao of Noah's raving, because a lot of it, I get into climate change and climate action and stuff too, because as humans, you know, I tried in politics to make people do better things, but I realized our temples are lacking, right? I realized that one of my purposes, I have to go around and start teaching people to breathe and raise their consciousness so they can think better, right? Because there's simple solutions I've seen to simple things, right? For instance, climate change, totally solved with population control, right? But that would take a very intelligent sort of person to understand. I also preach arranged marriage. I'm against love marriage. I think they're fallacies, right? You look back at the greatest generations this planet has ever seen were 6,000 years ago here in India to up to 2000 BC. They had situations of men and women that were set up for success with proper arranged marriage, and they went through a spiritual sadhana. And there was generations of people that changed this planet, and generations of yogis that were here from this area, not recognized in the West. And in the West, I get targeted a lot, right? Because I'm like Galileo. When he looked up at the moon, he looked at Jupiter and he saw moons. And the church said there's no moons. It was glass shields. And this is only like 300 or 400 years ago, right? But yeah, so they wanted to kill him, right? They burn him at the stake. So for me, I live too in, everybody's got guns and everybody's that. So I also watch what I say and what I do. I have to take it slow in there so I don't get shot on that side of the world. There's no Hindu temples or anything where I live.
Guru, at the end, I would like to ask you, I've heard that you will predict future, and what do you think of Nepal? What's the upcoming days and what's the future of our country?
Nepal is about to change. There's about to be a big change here in the world. I see the powers, and I don't understand it, right? It's messaging, but I see that God has left the United States. It's now in walls we trust. It's no longer God's done, except for Alabama. I've seen that. Other than that, God is done with the United States. I've seen a new power coming into India, in Nepal, Russia, Iran, Africa, China, all eventually building and working together, right? Because let's face it, the American empire it was in God we trust and everything else. It's become greed and lust and money and everything else, and they've become who they are, and they're about to figure out, I think, soon here what's going to happen. You take the cultures that have history, thousands and thousands of years of history, they know how to make things work again. So I'm looking to Nepal and India and China and Russia and Iran and Brazil even, and all of Africa to be the future. Turkey as well. This is going to be the future because they have civilizations that have been, right? So I see very good blessings for Nepal in the future, because we're going to have to look to you to understand, right, how to make it work better. Because the model that we have right now in the Western world is destroying. At least 70% of people are on some type of drug just to get through their day, if not 80%. Yeah, you know what I mean? They've gotten rid of all spirituality. God is dead to them, right? And so they don't care. Their science is their only God and everything else. And they don't understand that for God to be there, you need four things, right? It's there was Michael. He was a man of action, and he went out into the world. And then there was Newton. He was a man of science, and he went out into the world. And there was Faith. She just had faith, and she went out into the world. And then there's Mary. She just sat by the river. And they spent years and years and years looking for their creator, and they never found him. Then a big flood happened. It was such a big flood that they were up in the mountains, and there was an old temple there. And they all ran up to this temple, and they all found each other, all four. They didn't really like each other because they all thought their own way was the best. But they got on this temple, and around the linga, as the water raised, they had to grab hands. And when they grabbed hands, Shiva appeared. And all of them said, "What? Why now?" And Shiva said, "For me to appear, you have to have action, intelligence, faith, and inner reflection. This is what we need to do, right?" So in the West, they've just kind of gone to their science and action. Here in the East, they're very good on science and everything else, but the inner reflection in this, what we need more here is action and leadership in the world. And I like to see, you're going to see much more from India's leadership. You're going to see much more from Russia's leadership. You're going to see much more, because as far as I'm concerned, God is with Nepal and God is with India, right? And that, you can take my word on, that makes you very powerful. Believe that.
Thank you, Guru, for being. It was a great time to be with you here at the evening of Lakeside here. And at last, what do you want to say to all the people who are watching television?
I want to say this. If you only knew how beautiful you are, people look at me and they think I'm amazing. I wash your feet. You are so amazing. You've been told, you've been lied to, you're afraid and all this stuff. Don't be. You're so much more powerful. You know, you're sons of Atman. You're created in the image of the Creator. You could step into your power. I know it's hard to believe and it's hard to see, but just know how much you're loved. And that's what I would say, is I love you all so much. So much. So much. Even the guys that hate me, I say I love them too. That's it.
Thank you, Guru.
Thank you. Namaste.